Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to another deep dive episode of Severance by Story Archives. I'm your host, Mario Busto, alongside
the other host, Zachary Newton. Welcome back.
We're back with episode 6 titled Attila, parentheses, the Hun. We actually added that part in there because of the interesting story of how Bert got his nickname.
Yeah. Come on, Hun. How's it going? Let's do it. This is a very interesting episode. I kind of felt in sync with Mark in this. I actually got Chinese food this evening. So
Did you?
I did.
What did you order?
I switched it up. I normally get, I'll mispronounce this, I'm sure, so somebody can correct me, but General Tso's chicken's what I normally get.
Okay.
I ended up getting sweet and sour based on a recommendation from the restaurant, and I got some egg drop soup, so it was good.
Very nice.
Yeah.
Very nice.
I'm kind of digging the egg drop soup recently.
I haven't had good Chinese food in a while. We don't have many good spots around here that I know of. But great episode, very heady, lots of details, a lot of stuff going on under the surface, under the sheets. Everybody's getting it on in this episode. I don't know if Dylan got to home base or not, but it certainly feels like we're on a highway towards Innie Outie affairs happening behind everybody's back, which is always so interesting to me how writers tend to just crisscross storylines with each other. You got Helly is competing with her Outie. You got Innie Outie Dylan competing with each other. You got Innie Outie Bert, I guess, competing with everybody. There's just a lot of Innie Outie affairs going on.
It was. I did kind of think it was funny, though, that Dylan's the only, married Innie, and he's so far, the only person to not have some sort of relationship, really, with somebody else.
Well, that would be probably the best thing, right? Because then it would technically be cheating for him. So
yeah, a little weird.
He probably should be the only one not doing it down there in the severed floor, which we learned a lot about in this episode. We found out that it opened 12 years ago, which I think we knew that. But then now we got this sort of, call it what you want, breadcrumb drop of maybe there were some nefarious activities going on 20 years. So 8 years before it officially opened to the public, maybe the severed stuff was going on already. So we got a lot of that. It's overall just, if I write in my notes, this is a damn good show, which I did in this episode, while Mark was storming out of the Chinese restaurant, then it's a damn good show. It's like episodes like this. Everything is just so well done. And a lot of shots in this episode that upon first watch, you probably didn't even realize how probably difficult and intricate they were to shoot. Several of them involving Mark. That shot of him at the fridge going back and forth between his apartment to the office was insane to me.
Yeah.
And the fish, I mean, they obviously left the fish in one place, right? In the edit. And then you got the Milchick mirror shot, which is like a shout out to this. I don't know if this French film did it for the first time, and I don't remember the name of it, but I know the actor. I know the actor's face. I think was it Vince Cassel?
I have no idea which film you were talking about,
Cassel,
but I will say
Cassel.
the shots with Mark where he's kind of bouncing between his Innie and Outie state, they are really well done. To the point, sometimes I'm wondering, did they actually line these up and shoot these, or is it completely digital?
This was one of the few episodes where I know we have sort of a rule to not watch the behind the scenes. I kind of wanted to watch any bonus content for this. To see how they did that. The mirror shot, I kind of have an idea, which is, it was Vincent Cassel, and it's a 1999 French film called La Haine. I'm probably pronouncing that incorrectly, but the shot of Milchick when he's looking in the mirror and he's telling himself to grow, and it goes over his shoulder and then it just disappears. I mean, I'm assuming they used a body double, and he was actually facing the camera. So... So interesting things all over the episode. We could talk more about that later. Before we do, we got a lot going on the channel. We're doing a lot of episodes. I recorded, and Zach was there too, but he had to do baby duty at his house throughout the episode, so he was kind of in and out on the interview. But we're launching a sort of new series for the channel. May not be for everybody, may be for everybody. You never know. It was just more of a conversation, something that we're trying to do with people in the industry. Or at least working in production in any facet, but people generally that I want to talk to. And so I recorded a 3+ hour conversation with a good friend of mine, who's an actor. He's actually in the series Dexter Original Sin. He's a reoccurring character in there. He's been in Westworld, I think season 3, he told me. He's acted alongside Aaron Paul. And we had a conversation. It was less of an interview and more of just shooting the breeze over some drinks. And it was a good time. So I think you guys will enjoy it. It's going to launch at some point next week. And then I'm also doing a series with a guest host. I don't believe Zach will be joining on that one, which is going to be for Court of Gold, which is an NBA series that just launched, highlighting Team USA. Not just Team USA, actually. A lot of different national teams in the World Cup of basketball that took place last year. Actually, no, it was the Olympic. My bad. The Olympic journey of Team USA in Paris. And that's a documentary series. I'm going to be doing a sort of crossover podcast with a good friend of mine named Victor Lopez, who I've been on his podcast a couple of times. It's a basketball podcast. It's called All Things Basketball. You can find him on YouTube. And we're going to do a Story Archives edition of that show. So we'll be dropping a couple episodes for that. And I'll be recording that on Saturday. So lots of things to look forward to on the channel. And let's get into this episode. I'm very itchy.
Itchy for the episode, or are you just personally itchy?
For the episode, and also like personally itchy right now.
You know what it was? It was the sight, or I guess angle that you saw down Mark's head that's making you itchy.
Yeah, that did make me squirm in my couch. I mean, the side. I was not, when she said you have the hole that's already in your head.
I was expecting.
I was not expecting it to be the size of like the hole that was in the back of, the Matrix, where they like plug
I know
it
the
into
Matrix.
the back
That's exactly what popped into my mind too when I saw that.
But this was disgusting because it was just flesh and nasty, and gosh, man, it was disgusting. Yeah, it was one of those things where it was so disgusting that I could not look away the entire time. It was crazy. Overall, what were your thoughts, initial impressions of the episode, like just overall first gatherings?
Good. I mean, good episode. I feel like I've said that. I really haven't had an episode in Severance that's actually legitimately disappointed me. I will say, relative to the pace of other episodes I've seen, it has been a little slow, but there's so much development happening in these slower episodes. It is extremely interesting to see, and I am super glad that we kind of finally have Helly back. I liked that dynamic between her and Marcus. So I don't know how I'm going to feel when Mark finds his wife. I don't know how that's going to play out. I don't know how I'm going to react to that. I kind of feel like I want to be on his wife's side, but I'm digging Helly.
Same. I think slow has a negative connotation to it.
It does.
When you call an episode slow. And because I disagree with you. I don't think slow will be the right word to describe this as. I just don't think that you can constantly have fast paced in a series. I guess that's not the point, So I think you need these. And you might need a replacement word for slow. I think that insinuates that you didn't like the episode.
It's the pace, right? Like when I say slow, I'm thinking of the pace of the episode. And
how did you get through Mad Men, man? Because everything is slow.
But I love it. I'm not.
Mad Men.
But that's my point. Like I don't mean anything negative when I say slow on something like this, right? Like I'm purely talking about like the fact that like there's a lot of in-depth like dialogue and story. There's not like shit flashing on screen and you're jumping in between action-packed sequences or anything like that. It's just a completely different pace at which the story is being told. So when I say slow, I mean like it's more I feel like dialogue heavy, and or you're really just you got to get sucked into the visuals and pay attention to what's happening on screen.
Yeah, I tend to call it something like this, like meat and potatoes. Like this is like your course, or maybe this is an appetizer type of thing that's building the palate up for those action-packed sequences. Like if we're going to compare it to anything, the slow build of season 1 up until the finale, right?
Yeah.
But no, I found it really well paced, and just, I think there's just a difference between when something is moving slow paced and when something is just perfectly kind of trugging along. And this was the second episode in a row where I wanted to pick up with where we left off, which was we end the last episode with his insane vision of Gemma and, Mark, your Outie does this. Mark, your Outie does this. Mark, your Audie's going to, and then the episode ends. And I was hoping we'd pick up there. And we did. We picked up with Mark. We're starting to learn more about how this procedure's going. Now it looks really bad with how it's going.
Yeah.
Which, it reminded me, there's a story I know, and I knew he was having a seizure before he was having a seizure, because I heard a story from someone who told me personally and said, right before I had a seizure, this person was recounting to me because they had a seizure.
Mm-hmm.
They smelled this horrible smell, and nobody in the room could smell it. And I don't know what that smell is because I've never Googled what that is, but apparently that's a thing that happens to, I guess, some people who, before they have a seizure, there's just this odor that you just cannot get out of your nose. And at the moment I heard him say that, I was like, he's about to have a seizure. He's about to collapse at any point here. Yeah. And that was before he even had that little episode with his hand where he couldn't figure out how to pick up a glass.
Yeah.
Right? So it's going to be interesting. I'm assuming Mark's going to have to call out of work for a couple days. That's for sure. And now I don't even know what you do because he's collapsed on the floor, smashed his head on the floor, which that can't be good. And I'm assuming you can't just take him to the hospital. Or maybe you can and just say he banged his head. Because this state, as we see Drummond, rummaging around Irv's stuff, we saw this pamphlet that said, the region of Kier. So this whole place is controlled by Lumon, wherever it is. Now, I don't know what the state or region is called because it said Kier, PE. So I don't know what the name of the actual state is. But this is a region within whatever place this is. Yeah. And there was a picture of a bridge that looked like the Golden Gate Bridge, but there's a lot of bridges that have that structure. So I didn't kind of take my theory there that this could be some distant future or something. And maybe Northern California now.
I would imagine that Lumon owns the hospital too, though. It would be their doctors. So it's you can go, they're going to know something's up. Something's up.
Why do you have a bandage right on the place where we drilled a hole into your head? Yeah. By the way, is that safe to leave the hole open like that in the brain?
I wouldn't think so.
And the whole time, my paranoid self is thinking, how can you do this procedure in this unsterilized room? What if something falls in that hole in his head? Just a fly goes in there. I don't know, something.
Yeah, it was definitely some jank-ass, surgery situation going on there.
Yeah, she had the smoothest, most steady hands ever, freaking Jack from Lost. Before he lost his nerve.
Yeah, I didn't get that reference. I haven't really watched Lost.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, she was pretty steady, to be completely honest. I was expecting him to, if something didn't go wrong, during or immediately after, I was expecting next episode he's got some serious infection just from this thing happening.
I don't think we're out of the park with that one yet. I don't just think you can just stick needles in people's heads in unsterilized rooms with no consequence. But who knows? Who knows? I was really annoyed with Ragabi to start this episode when she was like, we need to accelerate it with the hole that's already there. And she starts probing at his head like a freaking lab rat. I was like, this dumbass lady's going to kill this guy.
Yeah.
Just for her little experiments, which I'm still trying to figure out what her, okay, you're doing these surgeries, you're doing these things, but what is your end game with this? Why are you working so hard to overturn Lumon? We still don't know why Irv's doing it. We don't know why Ragabi's doing it. We know why Mark's doing it.
Could Ragabi be the person that Irv is mysteriously calling from that phone booth?
I think we discussed that a little bit. I'm not entirely sure. I feel like that might be a cop-out.
It might be, but I wonder, are they... Maybe they work for, the same organization. I mean, maybe it's a competitor of Lumon, which we've talked about before, which I guess would kind of make sense, trying to steal trade secrets. Could be, I don't know, some government agency trying to bring down this dangerous, immoral company.
I don't buy the fact of Irv working for a competitor. I think that theory, Like, I wish you would make that bet so I could just take the opposite side, to be honest with you. Because you keep saying that, and I just don't think it's going to happen. So I think I took a risky bet. I think it's time for you to take a risky bet.
I'll think about it.
All right. No, I don't think Irv's in the, I don't think he's working for Amazon, who's also trying to launch their Severed program, I don't buy it. He had a bunch of notes of patients. He had PD's name circled on one of those page notes, right? So he's obviously looking into incidents. And it is interesting to me that Drummond stopped on the third page he looked at, I think, which had Dylan's name on it. So I really have no idea where that storyline is going. I'm also kind of shocked that Drummond has a tattoo on his hand that says Frolic. So we know about the 4 tempers. You got Frolic, Malice. What is it? Dread was one of them?
I think Dread's one of them.
Can you look up the 4th one? What was it? I forget what the 4th one was.
Let's see. What do you mean? You don't expect Drummond just bouncing around everywhere like a little kid?
Yeah. Well, it makes me wonder which one is Helena.
Well, so you have Woe, Frolic, Dread, and Malice. Those are the 4.
Woe, Frolic, Dread, and Malice. So you got 3 that are pretty much negative. All 4 are pretty negative because Frolic is not associated with much good. It's like frivolous, laziness, like not a care in the world type stuff, right?
Mm-hmm.
So you got Helena, you got Natalie, that I'm assuming is one of the others, right?
Yeah.
Who's the 4th? Is it Cobell?
Maybe.
Is it Judd? No.
I mean, I guess it could be Cobell.
There's so many things we're learning, right? I mean, we got Milchick with Hoying in this episode where he keeps on taking it out on this little girl, which she's always very disconcerting to me because she's always acting like a grown woman working in an office type of thing.
She seems like a mole. Like for his bosses, essentially. She's just a tattletaling little kid.
She scares me. She's like a kid who has like
too much power.
I don't know if that's the word I'm looking for. She has kind of like this sort of plotting, scheming nature to her that's very frightening for such a little girl to have at that age, right? I mean, for anybody to have, but even more when she looks like such an innocent little girl, So when you see her just probing for stuff like, hey, how did your performance review go? She's not asking because she cares, right?
Mm-hmm.
She's asking because she wants his job. And when he says, I need you to watch the floor, she marches over all like a maniac to go take his seat. And he's like, no, you can sit in your desk, right?
Mm-hmm.
So he's got a little rat working for him, So he sees it too. So that's why he's being such a, what to her.
Yeah, he is. But I kind of understand because she's clearly, it's like painfully obvious she's the one that's anonymously reporting these things going on. Like, who else would it be?
Well, she's supposedly on a fellowship, according to Milchick, and they said, you're not going to graduate this fellowship unless, you may not be winter. What did he say? Wintertide material. What is wintertide? We're going to learn about all these different things. So we got Cold Harbor, right? And we got wintertide. Does the wintertide go into the Cold Harbor? You know what I mean? Like, are all these names related? What's going on, right?
Yeah.
So
these missions that they're doing, they all seem to have some really weird code name. It reminds me of that little Lumon game that you and I played a little bit ago, where we were actually doing some data refinement ourselves. All of those little code names seemed very, very odd. Like maybe it had something else tied to it, like Cold Harbor. Does that somehow have to do with like this mysterious way in which she supposedly died?
You're talking about Gemma now?
Yeah, Gemma. Apologies.
Well, we know she died in a car accident.
Mm-hmm.
We could assume it was cold because it doesn't seem like it ever is hot. We've yet to see another season in this place besides cold, right?
Yeah, it's all cold. It's winter all the time. I guess one could call it wintertide.
I guess, we also don't know how much time has passed, right? So from like all of the seasons put together.
Yeah. I can't imagine it's been more than a few months.
Well, the picture on the regional map had no snow, so there has to be seasons. Has to be. So I'm assuming we picked this up somewhere in the late fall in season 1, and now we're somewhere in the like winter, like January, February-ish time.
So
Super
it's
interesting.
basically tied to where we're at right now in time. February. Pretty cold.
Yeah, Apple has a knack for doing that. They've done that at another point. For example, did they drop? Okay, so this movie just came out on Apple TV. I don't remember though in the movie if they actually crossed Valentine's Day. This is probably a bad example. But I watched The Gorge on Apple TV. Really fun movie. I enjoyed the heck out of it. Miles Teller, Anya Taylor-Joy. Really good.
I'm looking forward to watching that.
Yeah. Anyways, Dylan is nervous about losing his family visitations, which who wouldn't be?
Mm-hmm.
And Gretchen increasingly seems more interested in Innie Dylan than Outie Dylan.
Yeah.
Albeit, Outie Dylan was in much better spirits in this episode. Even wanted to get a car. But she seems just annoyed with him. You know, she mentions that he has a lot of phases, as she says, right? But she's just more like a very embittered housewife, I guess. She talks about how he took up scuba diving, woodworking, and then now he wants to go. I don't think buying a car is a phase, but
no,
she just doesn't seem very happy, and now she's lying to him, saying that her appointment with his Innie was canceled. Altogether strange.
She's totally having an affair with his Innie, like 100%. I feel like she doesn't like Outie Dylan as much because while they're both childish, Innie Dylan and Outie Dylan, I feel like Innie Dylan is at least childish, but he's at work. Outie Dylan is just childish and has no responsibilities, it seems. I mean, yeah, he's got kids, but I don't know how much he helps.
Are we saying women lose attraction immediately once their man loses their job? Is that what we're saying here, Gretchen?
That's not what I was saying. Are you saying that's what Gretchen's saying?
I'm just saying. I'm saying maybe that's what the show's saying. I'm just kidding. I don't think that's what the show's saying. But ladies out there, look in the mirror. Anyway. Time for introspection, ladies. Are you a Gretchen at home? Outie Dylan's doing all the work here. He's feeding the kid. He's doing all the stuff at the table. Overall, I just think a bigger improvement. The last episode's Outie Dylan didn't know how to make cookies, right?
Yeah. I wonder.
And now he's feeding 3 kids at the same time, and he's coming home all happy, like, oh, I want to go get a car. Like, chick, you live in the winter doomland. Like, what is your problem? Just go get the car. What is your issue? Gretchen pissed me off in this episode. I'm sorry.
Somebody's upset with Gretchen. Took that one personally, huh? Maybe there's something wrong with Dylan. I don't know.
I don't know, man. We haven't seen enough of Outie Dylan to make this assertion. But, and by the way, I'm just saying, like, it's weird to send your wife to go meet with your Innie.
Yeah.
I don't know. There's just something off about it.
There's a lot that just feels a little off about this show. I think that's probably why it's so interesting.
Of course. Like, if your wife went to go see your Innie, Zach, you would want to know A to Z what the hell happened.
Yeah.
Don't give me this glossed over. Oh, yeah, he was cool. Which, by the way, now she's gone from... She's joined... Remember the first time they meet? She's kind of joined. Like, you guys aren't separate people. And then now at the dinner table, she's saying... She switched up on him. She was like, oh, you know, he's... What did she say? She said something specifically... Let me find it. I wrote it down. She's separating him from his Innie is what I wrote. So essentially, she has separated their identities now. She now sees them as 2 separate people. I don't think it's going to necessarily end poorly for them. I think they'll figure it out. But there is an odd thing, right? I mean... Helly is devastated when she finds out that Mark had sex with her Outie.
Yeah.
Because these are 2 separate people. And then you have Fields and Bert talking about the fact, which I think this was a BS cover story, that, well, maybe not, because Fields was really weird.
He is weird.
That Bert went to, but hold on, but he's also not like, he is grappling with the fact that Bert might have had sex with Irv. Mm-hmm. So he's dealing with that. So you got 3 different people dealing with it. Dylan's just oblivious because he's doing all the work at home, feeding the kids. So he doesn't have time while he's baking cookies and stuff to do this. I'm just a Dylan apologist. Standing up for Outie Dylan. I don't know. I was gonna say, I was trying to get to my point there. Helly was struggling with the fact that she didn't get to experience that with Mark, right? That was one of the things in this episode. Yeah. Right?
Well, she did in this episode.
Well, she did, but that was the point. Is that she had an issue with it. First, the fact that he didn't know it wasn't her, right? Mm-hmm. That's offensive in and of itself because she thinks her Outie's a monster, right? Yeah. Same thing would happen, I would assume, with Outie Dylan, right? And Innie Dylan. I think Innie Dylan is more feisty than Outie. So I feel like at a certain point, he's going to start to like really resent his Outie. Mm-hmm. I said it, I think, at the beginning of the season. I think the most malleable, the one who could be most controlled would be Dylan because of his personality and because of this situation with the family visitation. So brilliant strategic move to allow him to meet with his family.
Yeah, they've got a lot of leverage on Dylan, I should say.
Gretchen needs to get severed so that Outie Dylan can go and hook up with Innie Gretchen.
Yeah, man, it's so bizarre. I mean, like, I feel like you have to look at these like 2 completely individuals a lot of the time, and I mean, I think that was part of Fields' whole thing. Like, they brought up this whole situation where it was like, well, I don't know. I guess Bert is just some bad dude outside. He's going to hell, so he had to get severed. So I guess his Innie could go to heaven. So it's like, if you truly believe that, like as Fields, if you truly believe that, then I think you have to be okay with Innie Bert having his own relationship with somebody else, even though your intent was to, I guess, be with Innie Bert's spirit in heaven in the future. So
I don't think Bert and Fields are paying much attention in church because no. It sounds like they're advocating for a pure works-based salvation, which kind of is antithetical to the Christian doctrine. So the fact that they did that, I would have to assume it's a cover story, because theologically it doesn't really add up.
Yeah, it doesn't.
So I need Bert to go get severed so he can go to heaven, because he needs to do that because that's his only hope. Like, if that's the true story, that is dumb. But then again, maybe it's unrealistic to expect everybody to understand what it is they're studying and what it is their faith or religion says. Anyways,
are you thinking like that's a cover story for like the fact that Fields may have worked for
100%
for a long time?
I was gonna say, I think Fields is the surgeon that we don't see his face last episode. It's got to be. I'm assuming it's him or possibly him. And this dinner party was obviously a cover up to get Irv out of his apartment, so Drummond could have enough time to rummage through all his stuff. So they're working with Lumon to snoop on Irv. So they are pretty much secret police, right? Yeah. So I think it's all BS to some extent. I just think that Fields is maybe losing his faculties in some sense. Maybe he was a little drunk on the red wine.
Expensive. Well, I mean, it was expensive. Yeah, that's.
Or was it? Because we see Irv scratching the sticker off of it when he's getting there.
That's a fair point. Yeah, I mean, I feel like it would
every
be
detail in this episode.
What?
I'm on fire. I caught like every detail in this episode.
You did. I had to deal with babysitting while I was watching this one, but
I need a baby so that I can just use that excuse for everything.
It's great. Yeah, I love it.
It's like people with dogs at home. They want to leave. I got to take the dogs out. My brother-in-law used to do that all the time. He still does that.
Gotta take the dogs out.
Dogs haven't been out all day. I gotta get going.
Darn, gotta go home. Gotta turn in.
And it's technically true because if you don't go home, the dogs have shit all over the place, and then I get it.
The amount of times my parents would go out of town and would ask me, "Can you stop by and let the dogs out?" Yeah, I can do that.
Yep.
So I do, but like I get off work so late, they've already shot all over the place. So,
Yep.
what was I gonna say? I was talking about Bert and Fields. Oh yeah, I mean, I feel like it would be really weird to not reveal who the person was in the last episode. Like that surgeon guy that had the dental equipment. We never saw his face. So I feel like it's gotta be Fields, which we were saying in the last episode, like it must be. Those were like the two unidentified individuals in the last episode. So I do think it's him.
Do you think that they're integrated? So like, did you notice?
You mean like reintegrated? Or you mean never severed?
Did you notice the kitchen in their place was half like white corporate cabinets and like half designed in some sense?
I did notice a lot of like weird
decor,
like paintings and stuff that you would expect inside Lumon Industries.
So
like there was that big painting like just kind of propped up there. It was a little bizarre.
That I didn't catch. So you're gonna have to break that one down for me.
Okay. Well, I mean, when Irv like literally first walked into the home, I think it was like panning over to the kitchen where Fields was. There was like it was just like one of those paintings. Like literally, it was a painting that you would expect to see in Lumon, just kind of sitting there.
Can you find the frame?
I can try and find that frame in the meantime. I was gonna say though.
There you go. Those are the cabinets right there. If you wanted to see them for yourself.
Yeah, I'm looking at them right now. Right around 26 minutes, I see is when Irv shows up. But here, let's see. Taking off his coat.
See the cabinets? It's like a
I do see the cabinets. It is kind of like half wood on the front and half white.
A lot of ceramic on top too. Just a lot of ceramic. Okay, that's a surgeon, isn't it?
Yeah. See, that looks a little. So all right. So it's 26 minutes and 54 seconds in. There's this random like painting just off to the right hand side. It's got like a picture light, shining down at it, kind of like the one I have behind me. But this. Is it a surgeon? It kind of looks like this guy's almost more of a clown, to be completely honest. Like he looks like he's wearing white, but he's got like what looks like a mask, a fake smile, or like clowns where they've got like that white over their face.
Yeah, a fake painted smile.
Yeah, like that's what it kind of looks like.
Very creepy, by the way.
Yeah.
Overall, very creepy. The lighting is very office corporate-y lighting in there.
Top down. Yeah.
So yeah, it made me feel almost like, what if they are like, what if he is the surgeon, whatever that might be, or maybe Bert is reintegrated. Maybe he remembers everything from the severed floor. I don't know. Maybe he's faking it.
Maybe Fields is not severed, and if he is the guy that's going through that exports hall, maybe there's just like he just goes that way because
They're definitely involved, right? Because everybody's probably screaming at the podcast by now, like, when are you going to mention the fact that they said 20 years ago when you were there with your partner? Remember, he said that when they were having drinks with his partner at Lumon 20 years ago, and Bert has to correct him, right? Yeah. He says, no, you mean 10 years ago, right? So Bert was already in on the cover story, and Fields is kind of losing it. So... Yeah. They have some involvement with Lumon before Lumon even went public. Now, what it is, I think we'll have to find out.
Yeah, I don't think we're gonna know from this episode yet. That'll be coming up next. But I did want to say there's just something about Christopher Walken, and anytime I see him in a movie or a show, I always see him as the bad guy or the guy on the bad side. So
really, he's usually the good guy, man.
I always see him as like the bad guy. Like whenever I see him first, I'm like, something seems off.
Usually like morally ambiguous in almost everything he's in.
So
like I'm thinking of him, King of New York. Technically, he's a gang lord. Have you never seen Deer Hunter?
That sounds familiar.
It's a classic. He's in Catch Me If You Can. He plays the father. I think he's in Catch Me If You Can. Almost positive. He is in Pool Hall Junkies, a personal favorite movie of mine. He's not a bad dude in there. He's a badass, like in everything he does. Yeah. And his line delivery. I think his family. I think were gypsies.
Like in real life.
Yep.
Interesting.
Let me look this up. It was a really cool story.
Christopher Walken. The gypsy. So basically, he's like Tommy Shelby nowadays. If Tommy Shelby was an actor.
Am I wrong? Am I just tripping right now?
I have no idea. I don't know enough of his backstory.
Let me see. I gotta look it up now.
Okay. Well, go for it. Look it up. Figure it out. But no, honestly, like, there's just something about his demeanor. Like, I always think there's something behind everything that he's saying. Like there's this cover maybe. So I don't. Maybe he's got some sort of like vested interest in Lumon Industries.
Folks, I don't know where I heard the gypsy thing about Christopher Walken, but I know I heard something about his upbringing, and it was like eccentric. But anyways, sorry, Zach, say that again?
I was just saying maybe he has some sort of like vested interest in Lumon, and he's not just some like victim like it seems these other people are, if you can call them victims, I guess. Well,
the episode does end on him, which, funny enough, it doesn't end on Mark after he slams his head on the floor, which I thought was a good ending point, right? Mm-hmm. But no, it ends on him shutting the door on Irv. And there's a lot of things going on. I mean, there's a lot of character confliction going on. You have Milchick back at the office, essentially killing every aspect of himself, doing repetitive paperclip placement to stop the way he does the paperclip placements, mm-hmm. talking in the mirror to pretty much dumb down his speech as much as possible, and then pretty much yelling at himself to grow. Because that was pretty much a message to himself, right?
Yeah.
So you got him conflicted about which direction to go because he's obviously conflicted about it. You got Bert, who seems to be conflicted about, what's going on, right? Mm-hmm. The one who I'm a little bit interested in, and I can't just outright tell if she's evil or just really wants some love, was Helena.
Really?
Because her interaction with Mark at the Chinese restaurant felt almost at the same time like vindictive and at the same time kind of innocent and at the same time caring in a weird way. And reckless.
Yeah, I got everything but caring out of that scene. I mean, I think you're spot on with everything else there, though. I do think she is if evil I had to split too that strong of a word.
I wrote it down in my side notes. I put, is she evil? First I put, she's evil. And then the second time I put, is she evil? Because I really think it's just, she's trying to see, is there like an otherworldly connection with this guy? So she's like looking in his eyes to see if he'll remember. And he does sort of remember, right? Mm-hmm. And he knows something happened between them, but he doesn't really know. And she obviously knows something happened between them. But there's some sort of weird, almost Cobell-like characteristic about her where it's like, remember, she had sex with his Innie.
Yes.
And so she's like talking to this person, knowing this bit of information, but not disclosing that to him.
Correct. And I think she's
something weirdly evil about that.
It's bizarre. I think she's a bad person, but she's having real affections.
If I had to split it into like a pie chart of the 4 characteristics I said, the caring is definitely the least. It's like 5 to 10%. And the only part of that is that sort of coy joke where she says, "You should meet my dad." Right?
Yeah.
It's because she legitimately wants to like be with this guy,
mm-hmm. Well, she probably has never experienced love in her life. So this is like she's a bad person. But like, I mean, the feelings she feels is real. So it's kind of hard for her to overcome that. So she's got to kind of like play, I guess, both hands here a little bit.
So if she is a bad person, maybe she got severed like Bert, so she could go to heaven too.
Maybe. But I don't know. I don't think Helly would let her. She'd be like, nah, I'm taking you down with me.
Mark chose to have an episode on the perfect day where Milchick was like punishing himself in this dungeon. Mm-hmm. Because a lot of stuff is going on under Milchick's nose. And I'm wondering, does he know all the escapades that have gone on the floor? Is Huang letting them happen because she wants Milchick to fail? Like, there's just like no supervision at all on these people.
Well, they do still have a hall pass.
Yeah, no, but this place is not surveilled at all.
Well, I mean, there's cameras everywhere, so it's like that's the thing, I guess. And I mean,
by the way, I will add something.
All right.
I wanted to make the point. The church that Bert and Fields go to, the pastor's position or the Lutheran church's branch position is that Innie and Outies both have a soul individually.
Yeah.
So that if the Innie can go to heaven whilst the Outie burns, type of thing, which is an interesting concept. I don't know what theme they're trying to go with there, but there's definitely something there because we've talked about it. In order for this to end, one of the two has to die, I think, or have to be perfectly integrated into each other. So,
or you just both die.
What is it that Mark said? What was the phrase he used to describe sex? Our vessels became.
Yeah, it was such a weird line. It was something about their vessels.
Our vessels touched our vessels, which is probably the same.
We were like the same vessel or something like that. Yeah. Gotta leave it to the Innies with the weird sayings.
Which is biblical in a sense. So they kind of like doing a lot with like biblical type statements.
Yeah.
Anyways, we talked about Mark getting Chinese. We talked about Gretchen the miserable. Poor Gretchen, man. She's just a dissatisfied night guard somewhere in Kierland.
She doesn't even want a new car.
Crazy. That Chinese food did look good.
It did. It was very interesting to be eating Chinese and watching somebody eat Chinese. It's great.
I know this isn't like, I guess this is like American Chinese fusion, but when P.F. Chang's hits, like when it actually hits, it's fire. Get some Mongolian beef or Mongolian shrimp or Mongolian chicken. You can tell I like Mongolian.
The Mongolian beef was good. I've had that.
The Mongolian chicken is like, I didn't even know it was a thing until recently. And by the way, like I said, sometimes it's hit, sometimes it's miss. But when it's on fire, bro, oh my gosh.
I haven't been to P.F. Chang's in like, God, 15 years.
Now I want like the most, like, just stickiest fried rice, like with eggs and vegetables, and then you put some like nice shrimp on top. Oh my gosh, bro.
They've got a good like iceberg lettuce salad or something like that. It's pretty fire.
You know what else is fire there? They got these ribs, these beef spare ribs with this sort of dry rub. Oh my goodness, insane! I've been in the mood for that. I've been in the mood for sushi. Okay. We talked about Drummond as Frolic. What do you think it means? Like, why did he stop on the page with Dylan's name? What do you think that's about? Like, what is it? What do you think he's gonna uncover from this? Like, what do you think this comes to?
Well, I was wondering, maybe Irv is like an investigator, and there's a reason he's looking into Dylan, or these other individuals. Maybe that's just gonna be like his next target. Beyond that, I'm not really sure. I didn't pick too much up from him stopping on Dylan's name. I just feel like Irv has highlighted like all of the people that he ends up having some connection with inside, as a severed individual. So maybe they're trying to see if he remembers things from the inside, and like has information that he shouldn't have. Maybe that means that they're going to go after Irv and kill him.
I don't know what it means either, but I do know that the next 4 episodes are going to be crazy. Maybe not 7, but I think 8, 9, and 10 are going to be insane. Yeah.
So, if it ended any way the first season did, it's going to be a very wild build up.
I'd be shocked if they can top that one, but that'd be nuts. All right, I think that about does it for our deep dive commentary. Let's do some categories here.
Before we do, did you hear that Severance is now officially Apple's #1 show, topping Ted Lasso?
That's huge, man. Ted Lasso had a chokehold on Apple TV for the longest.
For a long time.
That last season of Ted Lasso was a disappointment. But
it was.
But other than that, I love Ted Lasso.
It was a funny show. I enjoyed it a lot more than I thought I would.
Yeah.
All right. Categories. Let's start with favorite character.
By the way, the season was a disappointment, but there was great moments within it. I just didn't. It's one of those things, man, where it's so tough to like top every season. Like when a season's great, like, how do you top it? Sometimes it's very difficult.
Yeah.
So, all right, categories.
Favorite character.
Favorite character. You go first.
Man, I might go with. It's tough on this one for me. Like I kind of want to pick Mark, but I also don't really want to pick Mark. Like I feel like that's just kind of a gimme sometimes. I'm gonna go with Milchick on this one. Very, very interesting. He was extremely memorable for the very few moments he was in this episode.
Yeah, you make a good point there. I'm gonna have to go Mark on this one. I think that might be maybe the first time I've said it all season. Possibly.
Wow.
Mark.
Okay. How about favorite scene of the episode then? There's a few good ones.
Favorite scene. I really enjoyed the Chinese restaurant with Mark and Helena. I really enjoyed the dinner party with Irv.
Dinner party was
Fields,
great.
And Bert. And then the surgery thing I didn't enjoy.
No, that's the thing you remember, but you want to forget.
Yeah, I actually didn't enjoy it. It was great. I don't want to put it as my favorite scene. Yeah, so I think I said the two that probably were my favorites.
Yeah, I mean, I would definitely give it to the dinner scene with Irv, Bert, and Fields. I think that was super interesting to see that dynamic.
Because there was so much being revealed there, and then we were getting the interspersed cuts to Drummond breaking into Irv's house because they made a conscious decision to show us that. That could have been a choice where they didn't show us that. Right?
Yeah, that
could have been something that they completely just removed from the cut, but they decided to show us that Drummond went to his apartment. So maybe Irv realizes that some things are moved around.
He's been played. Back. Yeah, he seems like an individual that has extreme attention to detail.
100%. And then the other interesting thing is, are each of these characters going to have a counterpart villain? You know, so is Irv's nemesis going to be Drummond? Right? So if he's Frolic, what is the opposite of Frolic? I don't know if you want to do a quick Google search of what is the antonym the antonym of Frolic.
All right. Let's see here.
And by extension, Mark's nemesis might be Helena, right? Because they're both sort of the main character for their side of the party, right? And then is Milchick and Cobell? Is that a dynamic, or is it Dylan versus who's Dylan versus? Is it Innie versus Outie Dylan? You know, I don't. There's whose nemesis is who type of thing.
Yeah, the antonyms are interesting. So I'm gonna rattle off a few antonyms for Frolic.
Let's see if any of them describe Irv well.
So you have work, labor, drudgery, sullen, restrained, subdued, repressed, sulk, pout. I mean,
I guess a lot of these could be Irv.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of them do kind of sound like, because he seems so like he internalizes everything, like he's also a very like upset individual, like I mean, a very emotional individual at times.
So he's very emotionally repressed.
Yeah.
In ways, yeah.
So that's actually pretty interesting to kind of see those.
I guess we'll see. But then again, Drummond doesn't look like you wouldn't look at Drummond and say Frolic. You know?
No, you'd look at him and you'd say bouncer. That's what you'd say.
Yeah, bouncer at a club. You'd see John Wick villain, Penguin body double, you know. These things. Any more categories?
Favorite line. I think there was maybe a couple.
There's a good amount in this episode. I liked Milchick's little speaking into the mirror grow.
Yes.
Back and forth. But I think Christopher Walken might have taken it two in a row, where he goes, you know, what led you to get severed? And he says, Jesus Christ. And he says, He said, "Oh no," he says, "Jesus led me to the door," and he says, "Jesus Christ." He goes, "That's the one." That's the very one. Like, wow.
Oh my god. Yeah,
I
that
thought it
was
was funny.
that was funny. He also had a funny one when Irv just showed up to the front door.
Oh yeah, when he goes, "Who the hell are you?" or something like
Yeah.
that.
Irv looks like he about shat himself. That was
Yeah.
great. I also really enjoyed Milchick talking to himself in the mirror. It was a very intense scene. Very interesting to watch him.
Very, very intense.
Yeah.
Very, very
Reword
intense.
his big words into small words, simplifying it down into grow. So I liked that. I also thought the line from Dylan with Gretchen was pretty funny, where he's like, "Can we try that hugging thing again? I kind of like that."
I bet you do. I bet you do.
Yeah,
Pal.
of course he does. What was there? Anything else? The only other one that I remember was Mark when he came back. He bursts in from the Chinese restaurant and he's like, "I'm sorry, I was a dick. Let's get this done now."
Yeah, I actually didn't think he was being a dick, to be honest with you.
Well, I mean, they were both kind of.
They were both in the wrong, but
Yeah.
she didn't really acknowledge it.
Yeah, that's for sure. Well, those are all
hold
of the
on.
categories I have. You got something else on your end?
Well, I'm gonna see if we had any interesting comments to read out real quick on the previous episode. We'll see. I'm gonna scan through them quickly here. So the instrument that Huang was playing last episode was called the theremin. Okay. The work is mysterious and important, said by Drummond, is a callback to when Mark said that to Helly in the beginning of season 1. Okay, good call. This is from Anonymous 6H4A 8H5A. He also works in macro data refinement. He both contributes details and also lambasts us for missing such nitty-gritty details. So,
Well, thank you, I think.
thank you for tuning in, and thank you for contributing. Okay. Somebody put, corporations do own some towns IRL, right? Which corporations own towns? I know McDonald's owns the land of the restaurants that they own, so they own a ton of real estate, but which corporations own towns? Can we do a Google search to fact check this?
Yeah, sure.
Which corporations
Own towns.
own towns? Many corporations have owned towns, including the Pullman Company, U.S. Steel, and the St. Louis Stamping Company.
There's a Wikipedia page called List of Company Towns in the U.S. Interesting.
But it says formerly. Okay.
Yeah, formerly owned.
No, I guess there are towns. This person seems to be right.
Colton, Alabama, owned by Cole Lumber Company.
Any place in Florida?
I don't know.
Lake
There-
Buena Vista and the Reedy Creek Improvement District located within Walt Disney World Resort, which is okay, I guess it's parcels of land though. This is not like that they govern. We're not talking about owning. We're talking about governing. They write the laws, they pass the laws, they have like their own thing going on, their own government. And I think that's what we're more talking along the lines. Well, I know that's what we're talking more along the lines of, but
Yeah.
good comment. Thank you, Ghost MKC. It was called Trojan Horse previous episode because we have been watching Outie Mark pretend to be Innie Mark for episodes 4 and 5. I think you were wrong about that, David Agiel. I don't think he was pretending. I think he's been having episodes. Yeah. So,
Agreed.
and it was called Trojan's Horse because Rickon was saying it wrong, which Taddy Mason pointed out. So I love seeing the comments just go back and forth.
I do too. It's fun.
Thank you, Tobias, for constantly feeding the algorithm. And thank you, Jonathan Buckley, for always commenting. And thank you. Appreciate it. So, I think that does it. Anything else?
No, that catches us up on some of the standout comments here. I'm
Okay.
good. I'm ready for episode 7.
Yeah, man. The more and more I watch it, the more I want it to just binge it.
I know. Oh man, I hope we do not have to wait as long between seasons this time.
I don't think that'll be the case. Although the show is so intentional that I don't think we'll necessarily
might be 2 years.
They got to be, to get it next year, they have to be working on it right now.
Yeah,
like
well, yeah.
right now. Like that this hasn't stopped. They maybe took a few weeks off after the premiere, and they're back to work in the writer's room now.
I would imagine Apple would try to do everything that they can to pump out another season next year and not let it wait longer than that, especially given the fact that this has now topped their all-time charts.
Yeah, and actors too like to get things done, and so do creators. They want to just keep on working on it and get it done.
Yeah,
so it's a big time investment on these guys. I'm assuming these actors are dedicating at least half of their year to Severance, maybe at least a quarter of their year to it, or a third, whatever. So it doesn't leave you much room to prepare for other roles.
Yeah.
So there's a lot going on. There's a lot of instances where that takes place. So, anyways, thank you all for tuning in. We hope you enjoyed our deep dive coverage of this episode. Stay tuned for our crossover pod covering Court of Gold on Netflix. I'm going to be doing like a little mini series with my boy Vic on that. And we're going to be dropping the Conversation series next week. So, yeah.
Well, thank you for listening to this episode of Severance by Story Archives. You can find this podcast everywhere you find podcasts, Apple, Spotify, YouTube as well. I mean, Story Archives podcast. You can visit our website at soapbox.house. You'll find links to all of our social profiles over there, along with an email if you want to reach out to us. If you have any show recommendations, feel free to let us know.
Yeah. Thank you all. We'll see you next week.
Peace.